Brian Orme, CEO of Global Christian Relief. My friend, what is happening right now with the underground church in China?
Yeah, Raj, it is good to be with you again. I think it's super important for all of us as believers to understand what's happening in China right now with some recent raids on house churches, specifically Zion Church. And you have to kind of go back to the context of China and what's happening right now is that any church that exists has to be licensed by the government. And so licensed by the government means they have to install CCTV cameras, they have to submit sermons, they have restrictions on youth. And so the house church movement has been growing under that. And in 2018, the CCP cracked down on physical churches that were not registered, like Zion Church, and confiscated all of their buildings. Today, fast forward to today, this past weekend, there's additional laws that they've put in place that restrict online actions to, again, sharing faith, prayer, anything that would be considered kind of spiritual, religious online. And so that is what they've used to crack down recently on the Zion Church, and it arrested 30 people last week over the weekend, released 10, but 20 are still detained, including Pastor Ezra, the lead pastor. So that's the context of what's happening right now, is that what the CCP intended to do to squash Zion Church early on just fed to the growth of the church. In fact, they grew radically to nearly 10,000 members over the last number of years, even though they didn't have a church building. They went online, have churches in over 40 cities. The pastor, Sean Long, the interim pastor at Zion Church, told me, with 100 different small groups as well. So it's flourishing, and that's what drew the CCP's attention to crack down and make these arrests.
Well, let me read you something from the AP, which obviously isn't necessarily a Christian organization. It says, quote, under Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Beijing has cracked down on independent Christian congregations over the past decade, destroying crosses, burning Bibles, shuttering churches, and ordering followers to sign papers renouncing their faith. Why is China doing this? I mean, it's not necessarily a theocracy. Why are they clamping down so hard on Christians?
Yeah, I would say this from talking to believers in China, and again, others as part of the house church movement, that the government is afraid of the growth of this movement. And so it's growing, it's spreading, and they want to control it. And they want to have control over everything. So in their constitution, they share that citizens have religious freedom, but it's a hollow promise because they're coming in to give all of these restrictions to say the religious freedom they want is just exactly what the government says it should be. And so everything has to go through that filter, and anything that's outside of the government that's going to bring influence, they're trying to squash. And again, the church is one of those major points of that. It's a power play on their end to say, we don't want the church to grow under our noses and to gain influence in China.
Well, let me read you something from your red list, the Global Christian Relief. It says that you guys found that China arrested more Christians than any other nation in the world, with 1,559 arrests in recent years, more than triple any other country. So here's the question, Brian. This is just, really shocking, really appalling. So my friend watching this, we think to ourselves, okay, this is horrible. This is atrocious, but what can we do? We feel powerless to help. So my friend here who's watching, talk to them right now, Brian. How can they help?
Yeah, I think the first big step is, again, just entering the stories and caring. And obviously, we're called in Scripture as Christians to care for those who are in prison as if we were in prison with them. And so I would say the first step is to put yourself in the shoes of these Christians who are arrested and detained. Some other pastors who've gotten sentences for 9 and 15 years are in prison now. And put yourself in their shoes and pray radically for them, pray consistently for them. Talking to the interim pastor of Zion Church, he's saying basically, please pray that God would open these prison doors and let these prisoners free. That's the first step. The next step is to pray that God would work to give the government some direction to give more freedom for Christians and minority religions in China, which is a long shot for sure. But prayer is our first and most important weapon in this. The next step is to give, again, to organizations that are caring for the persecuted. Obviously, they can go to gcrelief.org and join us as we partner with our friends in China. And I know specifically talking to Zion Church, their next step and their need is to get lawyers to advocate even for those who are in prison right now. That's their next step that they're building and trying to create a pathway for. But I would say take a moment of your day and think about your brothers and sisters in China and picture yourself in prison with them and pray deeply and stay in touch with this story to see how God answers this prayer.
Brian Orme, I appreciate your time, my friend, and God bless.
Thanks so much, Raj. You as well.